You know, I think these are fun problems. So let's talk about then versus now. Like, let's say you were being paid $10 per hour. So I'll treat X as the number of hours. And then you were going to get $50 upon completion of the project or whatever. Or maybe at the start of the project as like a down payment for your work. Then you would have written this as Y equals 10x plus 50. So if you ended up spending 10 hours on this project, then we could evaluate that. We'd have 10 times 10 plus 50 gives us 150 or $150. But the whole idea is you have some sort of input that once evaluated gives you some sort of output, which really is Y. But now it's just going to look a little bit different. So the right side doesn't change as long as you're using X. But what you're going to say now is the function of X. So the way that X behaves, or what it does. And this is always written with like a cursive F, and then open parentheses X. Now this does not mean that it is F times X. That's not what's going on here. It's literally saying the function of X, so go ahead and mouth that to yourself. The function of X is 10x plus 50. So repeat that after me. The function of X equals 10x plus 50. And then another way that this is said shortly is just F of X. So go ahead and say F of X. So I am going to bother with writing this out because I think it'll help you understand it. So the function of X, well now instead of X I can plug in that value of 10 we talked about. So I want to know if F of X is 10x plus 50. So if this is the case, then what is F of 10? So I'm going to write equals 10 times 10 plus 50. And then just like before, I did rewrite F of 10, but now F of 10 is implied, so I don't have to write F of 10 every time. I can just go ahead and work out the right side of the equation. And so if I summarize this, I go, well, F of 10 equals 150. And this is set up to be figured out for all different sorts of values. You've kind of seen this in the past, because you've had to find out what Y is given multiple different inputs. So let's look at these values of different types of problems, and I think these will go just smoothly. So here's the deal. If F of X is 2x plus 5, find each value. Now as an in-between step, we are going to make sure that we write A, and then we're writing F of X equals 2x plus 5 for all of these. And the reason we're going to rewrite the original function every time is because it gives us a map to clearly plug in everything directly below where we're working. So here's F of X equals 2x plus 5, and if F of X, they're telling us to evaluate this for F of negative 2, well then I'll write F of negative 2 equals 2 times, and whenever I plug in a negative, I often like to use parentheses. Not all the times, but sometimes. Plus 5. Now, again, this is inferred, so we don't have to rewrite that every time. 2 times 2 gives me 4, which I make negative. And negative 4 plus 5 gives me a positive 1. And then I can just box that answer on the right, and that's more than clear for any teacher to navigate your work that you've done. Let's make B and O-Yo problem, and I'll show most of the work for it in just a moment, but I'll talk about it quickly. So go ahead and pause this. The answer's coming now. Alright, if you didn't rewrite the original function, please do. Now notice that I just was able to erase this chunk. And the reason I was able to erase it is because I want you to see that it's just the same process. I'm rewriting F of 3, and that's going to be equal to 2 times 3, which is 6, plus 5 is 11. And you can check these on Wolfram Alpha too. No big deal there. Now C we will talk about though. But hopefully, if I show this again, it's clear. Now over here I'm going to write f of y for C. And I'm only going to show you that because now we're plugging in a variable. This actually could have been like y plus 1. And if it was y plus 1, you just plug that in here. It could have been y squared plus 1. Same deal there. And then it would have to be in parentheses, so you would have to distribute and then add 5 later on. It might look crazy, but it's really not. So we scan through the problem. We see that it's f of x, but we're plugging in a value of y. We move to the right. Whenever I see that x, instead of writing x, we're going to write that variable of y, which means that once I get rid of my parentheses and say 2y plus 5, I'm totally done with that problem. I'm going to write that off to the side just to make sure it's clean so you guys know what I wrote. You cannot combine the y and the 5, so you are done with that. That's like a finished problem. And I didn't label that as C, but I think you guys are good. Now here's something that's a little bit more different. And because it's a little bit different, we're going to do this in 2 steps. The whole problem is f of 1 plus 4. But notice that f of 1 is separate from the plus 4. And because of that, maybe we'll do this in multiple steps. So on the left side, let's figure out what just f of 1 is. So we'll rewrite the problem just like before. And then we're going to say f of 1 equals 2 times 1 plus 5 equals 2 plus 5 equals 7. Now I plowed through that quickly because I think that that's okay. But then on the right side, now that we're ready to move on to the other chunk of it, here's f of 1 plus 4. So I'm rewriting the original problem, bam, over there. And we know that f of 1, after we figured it all out, is really just 7 plus 4, which is 11. I think that that really decreases the likelihood that you'll make a mistake going through these, and I think that'll help you out. So yeah, as I was saying, hopefully that's really clear how these are broken apart, where you have f of 1 here and then 4, and you're good to go. We'll do the last one, and I thought this was going to be 3 videos, but it looks like it's going to have to turn into 4. So for E, we don't have strange things going on here. We don't have strange things going on here. So it's nice to see what happens when you plug in 0. So here's f of x, the original function, 2x plus 5. Now we're going to plug in f of 0 equals 2 times 0 plus 5. And then, you can write 0 plus 5. You kind of don't have to because it drops out. So I'd be okay if you just jump down to equals 5. Sometimes I box the equal sign. Sometimes I don't. Don't overthink it. Just make it clear that that's your final result when you get through this. Okay, so this is good before we head into some of these more complicated problems and real-world problems.